Viewers are invited to drop their location and local time in the comments because it's always fascinating to see where people are tuning in from. And with that small ritual done, the story flows right into a suburban cul-de-sac that looks quiet on the outside but is about to become ground zero for a clash between entitlement and stubborn resolve. The man had worked 12-hour shifts for years to build the life he wanted. His crown jewel wasn't a flashy car or a marble foyer, but the shimmering pool hidden behind tall fences. That water was his sanctuary, the one place where his pulse slowed after long nights grinding away. Yet the peace shattered one morning when ripples cut across the surface, even though the wind was still. Coffee mug warm in his hand, he leaned toward the sliding glass door and froze. Floating on a neon pink inflatable sun hat, tilted just so, was Karen. Not just any Karen, but the infamous one who lorded over the HOA like Cleopatra with a clipboard. Her sunglasses glinted. Her tumbler sparkled with condensation, and her smile dripped with fake familiarity. "Hope you don't mind," she chirped, as if strolling into someone else's yard was the same as borrowing sugar. He should have screamed. Instead, jaw-locked, he muttered, "This is private property." She countered with the classic, "Sharing is caring." Somewhere historians still argue whether that phrase was meant for kindergarten classrooms or suburban invasions, but in this backyard it sounded like a declaration of war. He let it slide that morning, chalking it up to shock. But soon Karen escalated. A few days later, she returned with two friends, splashing like it was Club Med. Gates locked, signs posted, none of it mattered. She treated his sanctuary as her new playground. And the real kicker came at the HOA meeting. Instead of potholes and trash collection, Karen stood front and center with a stack of papers announcing how selfish it was to keep amenities hidden. Her eyes landed squarely on him as she suggested that neighbors share pools for the good of the community. People murmured. Some nodded politely. He caught her in the parking lot afterward and hissed, "Stay out of my yard." Karen tilted her head, feigning innocence. "It's just water," she said. "No harm done." Then she tossed out the HOA threat. Maybe the board would see it differently. It was the kind of arrogance that made archaeologists wonder if ancient rulers acted like this when they first discovered aqueducts. From then on, it became a performance. She would wave at passers-by while lounging in his pool, daring him to blow up. She tore down signs, scaled fences, and grinned while doing it. Each time he clenched his fists, he realized that confronting her directly only played into her hands. Karen thrived on twisting narratives. If he dragged her out, he'd be the aggressor. She wanted the show. And that's when he recognized a hard truth. To win against Karen, it would take more than outrage. It would take strategy, patience, and a plan so airtight she couldn't wriggle free. He spent that night pacing between the pool's shimmering reflection and a notebook on the kitchen counter. If brute force or shouting matches only made him look like the villain, then subtlety had to be the weapon. By midnight, the plan glowed clear. Let Karen bury herself with her own arrogance. The first step was discreet cameras. Tiny, weatherproof, nearly invisible, tucked under eaves and nestled in flower beds. They weren't there to scare her. They were there to capture every smirk, splash, and fence climb in high definition. The second step leaned more toward psychology. He drained the pool just below the tile line enough to look off-putting and posted signs that read "Pool under treatment. Do not enter," with a red chemical hazard warning bold enough to make a daredevil blink. Of course, the water was harmless, just regular chlorine tabs. But the mind plays tricks, especially on people who can't resist forbidden fruit. Some anthropologists still argue whether danger signs deter trespassers or simply dare them, but in Karen's case, the answer came 2 days later. During his lunch break at work, his phone buzzed with a motion alert. He opened the live feed and nearly choked on his sandwich. There she was, wide-brimmed hat, oversized sunglasses, surveying the signs with that trademark smirk. After a beat, she kicked off her sandals, dipped a toe, then slid herself right into the water, ignoring every bright red warning. The cameras drank it all in the lazy float, the scoff, the brazen confidence. By evening, he had the footage saved, duplicated, and backed up like a man guarding state secrets. But evidence in a vacuum is just data. For maximum effect, he needed a stage. And conveniently, the HOA meeting loomed. He walked into the clubhouse that night calm as ever, Karen seated at the front like royalty on a folding chair throne. When the floor opened for concerns, he rose and said evenly, "I'd like to discuss repeated trespassing." Murmurs flicked across the room. Karen tilted her head, feigning confusion. "Trespassing? Surely you don't mean me?" He inserted the USB stick into the projector, and with one click, the walls themselves betrayed her. On screen, crystal clear, was Karen climbing fences, ignoring hazard signs, and sliding into the pool as though auditioning for a reality show. The audio caught her laughter, her splashes, even the smug grin she wore like armor. Gasps rose from the neighbors. One whispered, "Is that Karen?" Another covered a smile with their hand. Karen bolted upright, sputtering, "This is outrageous. You can't film me." But her protest drowned under clip after clip, each one hammering the pattern deeper. This wasn't an accident. This was her routine. Finally, a board member cleared his throat, voice measured but firm. "Karen, this is trespassing, vandalism of posted signs, and a violation of community trust. We will need to review disciplinary action." For the first time, her mouth opened without a single clever comeback. The Queen's crown slipped right there on that linoleum floor. And as he sat back down, he felt not triumph, but relief, like finally releasing a breath he'd held for weeks. For days afterward, the neighborhood hummed with whispers. Karen's name floated across lawns like pollen, irritating, impossible to ignore. Some neighbors gave her sidelong glances. Others chuckled when she passed, and for the first time since moving in, he felt the power tilt back to balance. Still, he knew Karen too well. A woman who thrived on control doesn't retire quietly after one bad meeting. Sure enough, 3 nights later, the cameras pinged again. He tapped his phone, and there she was, skulking near the gate, robes cinched tight, fumbling with the latch like a burglar auditioning for community theater. He stepped outside, flipping the floodlights with a sharp click. The yard exploded with brightness. Karen froze mid-climb, caught like a raccoon raiding garbage. Really, he called his tone flat as stone. "After everything," she stammered. Robe-clutched voice cracked. I just came to talk." He raised an eyebrow. "By climbing my fence at midnight, that's not talking, that's trespassing." Her shoulders slumped, the smirk gone. Finally, honesty crept in. "The HOA's threatening to fine me. My reputation is ruined. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone." He crossed his arms. "No, Karen. You did that yourself. I only showed them the truth." She glared, but the venom had drained away. For once, she looked less like the queen bee and more like someone cornered by her own hubris. She muttered something under her breath and retreated into the night. From then on, silence returned. No laughter echoing off the water. No splashes behind his back. At the next HOA meeting, she sat in the back row, sunglasses tucked away, voice absent from debates. Her reign was over. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he stood by the pool water, calm and golden with fading light. Weeks of turmoil had finally yielded stillness. He dipped his hand in letting the cool ripple against his skin. Boundaries had been tested, but the lesson was clear. Battles aren't always won with fists or shouting. Sometimes patience, evidence, and timing speak louder than rage. The pool glimmered as his sanctuary once more, and Karen, once the self-proclaimed ruler of the block, was history. The neighborhood learned something too: respect lines or risk being the star of your own downfall. And now the story softens, winding down like the last notes of a lullaby. Imagine the pool's surface at dusk, not a ripple in sight, just streaks of orange and violet reflecting across calm water. Picture the cicadas humming their chorus, steady but gentle, wrapping the night in a blanket of sound. He breathes deeper these days, shoulders no longer tight with tension. And even the gate creaks a little less, as though relieved it doesn't have to guard against late-night intruders anymore. Life in the cul-de-sac returns to its quiet rhythm. Neighbors wave without hidden smirks. Dogs bark at nothing more sinister than squirrels, and the air feels lighter, unburdened by conflict. Karen still exists, of course, but now she's a faint silhouette at the edge of gatherings, quieter, humbled, perhaps even softened by her own undoing. Some folks say people never change. Others argue that humiliation can crack the hardest shells. Historians naturally still argue whether shame is a teacher or just a scar. As twilight thickens, the pool's water cools into silver, and he lingers at the edge a moment longer. The fight has passed the boundaries restored, and the night itself seems to whisper that peace, hard-earned and quietly cherished, is the sweetest victory of all.